we've spoken before about the changes to Ontario's auto insurance regulations, which include lower payouts and new criteria for so-called catastrophic injuries. Imagine being in a life-altering collision just one day after those changes took effect. Adam Berry was in a coma after a serious collision in June. 4 months later, he's still struggling to regain his old life. And instead of being eligible for $2 million, he received $86,000 because his injuries aren't deemed to be catastrophic under these new rules. The CBC's Amanda Margison spoke with Adam and his wife Courtney about the collision, the payout, and what all of this means to him.
I mean, I'm expecting him home, at a certain time. And when he wasn't home, I started calling his cell phone. And then finally, the last time I called, the social worker at Hamilton General Hospital picked up the phone. I mean, I knew he was airlifted, so I knew it was bad. So there was a basal skull fracture. They knew there was a brain bleed, a broken forearm. His hand was broken femur, broken tibia and fibula, so that's the lower leg. Now that he's out of the hospital, nothing's covered by OHIP anymore. So this is where we're having to pull on the motor vehicle insurance. So he has $50,000 available for medical rehabilitation, and he has $36,000 for attendant care. But see, out of that $50,000, so Adam requires an adjustable bed. You're looking at, around $4,500. That comes out of that $50,000. You have occupational therapists coming in. There's a few $1,000s right there that comes out of that $50,000.
It's quite hard to accept. I can't walk, I can't play with the kids, I can't teach you how to ride a bike. I can't help with basic chores around the house, like dishes and cook, and sometimes it's a pretty hard pill to swallow. It's just a nightmare because you can't get what you need to get better.
How is he supposed to rehabilitate after these surgeries? At that point, do we have to sell the house in order to afford this therapy that he needs? How do you get better when there is no money there to do it?
That's Adam and Courtney Berry. Adam was in a collision in June, left him in a coma, and as you heard, months later, still struggling to get back on his feet, literally and figuratively. Personal injury lawyer Mike Smitiuch is representing Adam and Courtney. We spoke with him in May when we first covered those changes to auto insurance. He's with me in studio now. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
So, you hear Courtney describing what Adam went through. There's a litany of broken bones. He says he can't really move around his own home. It sounds like he has suffered catastrophic injuries, but they don't meet that threshold. Why aren't what he is facing, those injuries, why aren't they deemed to be catastrophic?
Well, sadly, Matt, as of June 1st of this year, the definition for catastrophic changed. Under the old definition, if you had something called a GCS, a Glasgow Coma Scale of 9 or less, you would automatically qualify. That's one of the ways.
What is that?
Glasgow Coma Scale is a way to rate brain impairment, essentially how aware you are at the accident scene, how aware you are at the hospital. If you had a 9 or less, you were automatically deemed catastrophic. Adam had a 3 at one point. And then an 8. So automatically, had this accident happened 24 hours before, he would have been entitled to benefits which equal $2 million.
So how much more injured would he need to be deemed to be catastrophically injured?
Well, that remains to be seen under the new definition of catastrophic is very restrictive. Medical experts have looked at it, especially as it relates to brain impairment. And sadly, Adam is probably the first case in Ontario because the changes happened in June 1st. It remains to be seen how restrictive this definition will be. He may never be deemed catastrophic, but down the road, he may eventually meet the designation.
Is it strictly about brain impairment? Again, Courtney went through all the bones that he's broken. I mean, it's awful. It sounds like what he went through. Is it this definition strictly about brain impairment?
Well, it's certainly horrific what happened to him. It's not all about brain impairment. There are other ways that you can be deemed catastrophic. People who have amputations might automatically be deemed catastrophic. Someone who is rendered a quadriplegic also will be basically automatically deemed catastrophically injured. With the broken bones, with other problems, they can add up to a certain percentage. You have to have a 55%, it's called whole body impairment, but that won't be determined until sometime down the road. In the meantime, the problem with this is Adam will go without the much needed therapy and care that he needs, and it could be 2 years before a decision is made about this.
Why will he go without that?
Because OHIP simply doesn't cover all the extras that Courtney was talking about in her interview, the occupational therapy, having a case manager to coordinate all of the medical care, physiotherapy, speech language pathology. There are so many things that aren't covered now by OHIP.
And those changes were made 24 hours before he happened to be involved in this collision.
That's right. And the sad thing about it is the Barrys, and I know countless other people in Ontario, didn't know that these changes were happening. Certainly it was communicated that benefits were being cut, and severely cut, in half, from $2 million to $1 million for catastrophically impaired individuals. But it was never communicated to the Barrys that the catastrophic definition was changing as of June 1st.
As you understand it, why was the change to the definition of a catastrophic injury changed?
I believe this stems from the Liberal government's promise to cut insurance premiums by 15% in 2013. The Liberals had a minority government. They made this promise to cut premiums by 15%. And the ironic thing is, all of these benefits have been cut. And premiums in the last quarter, as reported by the Financial Services Commission, actually went up.
But again, nobody wants to pay more. There was huge pressure on the Liberals from other political parties to cut these premiums and to live up to that promise. Do you think people had a sense that if you cut the premium, this is the fallout from that?
I don't think individuals had any sense. I don't think people realize this until it actually happens to them. Certainly there might be some short-term gain by cutting premiums, but there's going to be a lot of long-term pain because of these severe cuts.
Spokesperson for the Ministry of Finance told CBC News that the changes were made to the definition of catastrophic impairment to be more consistent with, and this is their words, more up-to-date medical information and knowledge. What is your response to that?
Certainly that is one thing that has to be looked at and was looked at. The problem that I have with it is the way it was communicated as a starting point. With the Barrys, their policy wasn't set to renew until 1 month after this accident. Matt, it's the equivalent of starting a baseball game, playing under a certain set of rules, and then halfway through the game, changing the rules. The Barrys purchased insurance, and they expected the coverage to be there, and it was arbitrarily changed before it even had a chance to renew.
But is there more up-to-date medical information and knowledge, in the words of the government, that we should now be aligning ourselves with?
I think that's a good thing always to keep up to date with medical advances and information. But let me be clear about this, that just because someone is deemed catastrophic, this is not a windfall, Matt. This is, you still have to prove that you need the benefits. You have to prove that you need the physiotherapy, the massage therapy. So just because someone is deemed catastrophic doesn't mean it's a windfall.
Finance Ministry also told CBC News that consumers have the option of buying additional coverage up to $3 million in total catastrophic impairment coverage. Why wouldn't somebody buy that?
Well, because they don't know that these cuts have been made. The government and insurance companies did an extremely poor job communicating the fact that these benefits were going to be cut. And frankly, how would you know that the catastrophic definition is being restricted so much if they never told you about it?
I think the reality is most people don't read their insurance policy to begin with, let alone know that there have been changes. I mean, I don't think people do. Let alone know that changes have been made, right?
I think you're exactly right. And then until something like this happens to them, they don't realize the impact it's had.
Statement from the press secretary for the finance minister, Charles Sousa, says, in the end, this is about lowering premiums while providing support and protection for all Ontario drivers. Also points out that Ontario is the only province in Canada to offer exclusive catastrophic coverage. What wins out here, do you think? Is it about lowering premiums, or is it about protecting drivers and consumers?
Well, as I said, in the last quarter, premiums haven't even gone down, according to the Financial Services Commission. So they've made these severe cuts, and they're not even achieving the goal that they were setting out to do. Premiums are not necessarily going down. I've talked to a lot of people where they say, where are these premium reductions? And they're not seeing them. So I think that injury victims in Ontario are losing out big time, especially those that need it the most, the ones that are severely injured, like Adam Berry.
What is the road ahead for him?
The road ahead to him is a long, extensive recovery. He may never drive a car again. He may never work again. He has 2 young twins and a wife to support, and she's doing her best. She's a massage therapist, and it really remains uncertain as to how he'll recover. He didn't ask for this to happen. It wasn't his fault, and the outcome has been severe.
And had it happened 24 hours before, he'd be in a different situation to some degree.
You're quite right.
Mike, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike Smitiuch is personal injury lawyer speaking about Ontario's new auto